Yeah, for those of you listening from the comfort of your home, just because you are at home doesn't mean that you can listen to the Dhamma. When you listen to the Dhamma, you should put on some clothes. Yeah, so even though you are in your comfort of your home, it's part of being respectful to the Dhamma when you listen to the Dhamma. And sometimes we are too comfortable when we are at home. Okay, so we have already discussed about Kanika Samadhi, this momentary concentration, which is one of the ingredients of the practice of Satipatthana. It is in the Satipatthana instruction, this Samadhi. It is implied by the expression Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanasam, overcoming covetousness and grief in regards to the world. So according to the Satipatthana instruction, so when the yogi dwells contemplating, noting continuously again and again, the body in the body, with ardent energetic effort, with mindfulness, with clear comprehension. So every moment when the yogi notes in this way, in that moment when he notes, the mind, the noting mind is able to put away this covetousness and grief, which means the hindrances. Okay? So putting away the hindrances implies that at that moment when you note, there is this samadhi, concentration is present. There's this intense focus of mind on the object that is noted. So intense focus of the wholesome noting mind on the object. So because of this power of intense focus of the wholesome mind, the hindrances have no opportunity to arise. So it's being put away. So overcoming covetousness and grief with regards to the world. So how is this Kanika Samadhi developed? So by means of ardent effort, by means of intense, persistent, relentless effort. Apply the basic noting method. That means the method of anupassana. Okay, so you make ardent effort to note continuously, not repeatedly. Note again and again. Okay, relentlessly, without a break. So you make effort in this way, and not precisely. Okay? So you begin by noting the primary object. Okay? So, for example, noting rising, falling, rising, falling. So you note continuously, noting of rising, followed by noting of falling, followed by noting of rising, and so on, again and again. Every time you note, you make effort to be precise, to follow continuously, each rising, each falling, from beginning to the end, okay, without a break, so that the mind, noting mind, sticks continuously on each object that is being noted. So you start with the primary object and stick to it continuously. Then as and when excuse me, as and when the secondary object arises, and if it is prominent, so that means it pulls your attention away from the primary object. Then you turn your attention to note the secondary object, note until disappear, and then again return your attention back to the primary object. Okay? So yeah, so you stay as continuously as possible with the primary object. Only note the secondary object when it is prominent. If it is not prominent, it's a very weak, mild object. It doesn't pull your attention away from the primary object. Then you can ignore and stay with the primary object. So the yogi apply this ardent effort, persistent, relentless effort to note continuously, again and again, repeatedly, relentlessly. Okay? Then as the yogi note in this way, gradually the strength of the mindful noting develops. Okay? So as you put in effort into each moment of noting again and again and again, every moment you pump in effort into the noting mind. So the strength of the mindful noting develops, becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay? Then gradually, this kanika samadhi, this momentary concentration, is established. Gradually, the yogi find that the mind, the noting mind, is able to stick more and more continuously on this continuous moment to moment occurrence of the object, without being distracted away. This shows that the strength of the concentration is developing. If the concentration is weak, you find that the mind is very easily distracted, and it will be distracted again and again. But as the concentration develops, the distraction start to reduce. So the mind is able to stick more and more continuously with the object. Any object that it knows it can stick. It's not so easy to become distracted. The mind had the strength due to the mindfulness it established firmly on the object. So at some point, the yogi will experience the state of citta visuddhi, and the mind continuously fixed on the object that is noted. So there will be just pure, wholesome noting mind occur continuously. Okay? So once this kanika samadhi is established, it will not be long before the yogi can begin to discern the nature of sabhava lakkhana. So this what we call the unique characteristic, the mental physical nature, that are the unique characteristic. So so it won't be long. Once kanika samadhi is established, it won't be long when the yogi will begin to discern clearly this sabhava lakkhana. So the sabhava lakkhana, we say, is unique characteristic. So now in the Buddha's teaching, Buddha talk about many different dhammas. Dhammas here means phenomena. So natural phenomena, mental phenomena, physical, phenomena. Okay, so the Buddha talked about many different kinds of phenomena, and each of these phenomena has its own unique nature, a nature which is unique only to that particular Dhamma, right? A nature that is not shared by any other Dhamma. Okay, so take for example physical nature, right? So for example, in your noting, sometimes when you're not touching, so the mind might be able to experience, when it's clear, you can experience nature of hardness or softness, sometimes roughness or smoothness. This is the unique nature of what we call the earth element. Okay, so when you experience this nature, hardness or softness or roughness or smoothness, you know that this is the earth element. This is the nature. Okay, so yeah. So once the Kanika Samadhi is established, the yogi will begin to discern clearly. It won't be long. You'll discern clearly all this nature. So not just of the earth element, so hardness, softness, then roughness, smoothness. Okay, and sometimes you discern also the temperature, heat and cold. So that is the unique nature of the fire element. Right? Sometimes of the wind element, like the support, the pressure, the pushing, the pulling, the stiffness, tightness, and so on. This is the nature of the wind element. Okay, so so as the yogi, for example, as you are noting rising, so when you're not rising, falling, rising, falling. Okay, so when the mind is clear, so you begin to discern as you note. There's tightness and tightness and tightness. So when you're not rising, there's tightness and then tightness and then tightness and tightness as it goes up. As it falls, we can feel maybe a sensation of pulling, 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 pulling. So this is the unique nature of the wind element. So this is called Sabbhava Lakkhana, because it is unique only to this wind element. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So now, of course, earlier also this nature was there. This nature, the wind element, all these others, wind element, fire element, earth element. So hardness, softness, stiffness, tightness, heat, cold, all these things, it's always there in every moment of experience. Every time you're not touching, they are there. When you're not rising, falling, they are there. Right? So, but earlier on, when the mind is not well developed yet, when the concentration is not there yet, so very often you miss this nature because the mind is not clear enough yet. Unless I ask you to specifically pay attention. Ask you to pay attention, put your hand on the table, on the floor, ask you to feel, ask you what you feel, then because you're paying attention at that time, there is this focus, there's mindfulness, then you feel. Right? But normally, if you are not paying proper attention, the mind will not usually pick up all this nature. Instead, the mind will be drawn towards the concept. Right? So, for example, when you first sit down and practice especially for beginners. For experienced yogi, of course, they know what to look for already. So they know how to direct the mind, where to direct the mind. But you ask a beginner yogi, sit down, not rising, falling. So where is the mind drawn to at first? You'll be drawn to the concept, right? Concept related to the rising, falling. The mind will go feel the form and the shape of the abdomen, right? So you see the abdomen like a ball, or like a wall. So then you feel that concept of direction. Oh, it's going up, it's going down, it's up, it's down. Sometimes they say it goes diagonally. Sometimes it goes side to side. So this is a concept of direction. So manner of movement, concept of manner of movement. Or it's moving very fast, or it's slow, it's long, it's short. So the mind at first drawn to all this concept, because this is what the mind is familiar with, right? Because we live all our life in the world of concept, right? So very rarely in our everyday life, before you practice meditation, very rarely in your everyday life do you pick underneath the concept to see what is behind all this concept, right? So when you let's say you stretch your arm forward, let's say to open the door, right? How often do you feel all the tightness, the pushing, the heaviness, right? So all you see is my hand, my arm stretching forward, right? So we live our life in a world of concept most of the time. After you practice Vipassana, of course, once you train your mind, you become sensitive to all this nature, then maybe in your everyday life, sometimes you can pick up this different nature, mental, physical nature as they arise, right? But otherwise, you often miss it. Even yogis or practice, or sometimes when they are busy doing their everyday activity, also they also forget, right, to note. Then again, your mind is engaging with concept, right? Like when you drive a car, do you think, I'm touching a steering wheel, touching? You see the car in front of you, not seeing, or do you aware, that is a car in front, I better don't drive too near, right? So that means your mind is in the world of concept, not in the world of reality, right? So when you first come to meditate also, so in the beginning, your mind will be drawn to all this concept. So your attention, when I ask you to note rising, falling, your attention will naturally go to all this concept. But this is where the method come in. We direct you. Okay, you never mind. You note. You follow. Never mind. You follow this concept. You follow again and again and again, because the mind is so close. You put your mind so close to this object. And then you train the mind to focus continuously, follow moment to moment from beginning to the end. So slowly you develop the concentration. So, and as the concentration develops, the clarity of mind also develops. This samadhi jnana develops. This clarity, clear knowledge due to the deepening of samadhi develop. And as it develops, the mind becomes more and more sensitive. And then you begin to experience, you transcend beyond concept, first of all. So, and then you begin to experience the underlying reality. Okay? All this reality underneath it, which is actually more subtle. But when the mind is clear due to samadhi, they become prominent to the mind. Okay? As the concept starts to recede away gradually. So the mind transcends beyond the concept, and then it get drawn into this real nature of this mental physical nature underlying the experience. And that becomes prominent. Gradually it becomes more and more prominent in the experience. Okay? Yeah. So although you begin rising, falling, or like the ball going up, going down, going up, going down. So, but as the mind becomes clearer and clearer, become more and more intimate with the object, that it begin to feel this the physical nature underlying it. So you can feel as it rises, there's tightness, as it falls, maybe there's pulling or sometimes pushing. So the mind gets drawn to this real nature that is underlying the concept. Okay? So and not just the physical nature. So at first you start with physical nature. So you're not rising, falling, rising, falling. When the mind is clear, then you begin to notice, it's tightness, it's pulling, it's tightness, it's pulling. So when it's clearer still, you can feel kind of like break down into segments, right? There's tightness, 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 tightness. And then as it goes down, like pushing, 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 pushing. And it goes up again, like tightness, 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 tightness. So, and then, so you put your mind there, you continue to follow, follow. And then the samadhi deepens. As the samadhi deepens, the mind becomes clearer still. At some point, you begin to discern also, not just the physical nature, also the mental nature also starts to become clear. Suddenly you feel, there is something there besides the tightness. There's this quality, knowing of the tightness. So there's tightness, and then there's knowing the tightness. Tightness, another tightness, another knowing of the tightness. So there's the object, and then there's a knowing. So so in this way, gradually, once the Kanika Samadhi is established, the yogi gradually comes to discern clearly the mental, physical nature that's present in the experience that is being noted. Okay? This nature has always been there. In every moment of experience, it's always there. Okay? But when the mind is not well trained to discern them clearly, then you miss them again and again. Okay? So the mind gets drawn to the concept. Okay? The concept is like another layer that the mind put on top of the reality, covering it up. So that's why everyday life, we experience concept most of the time. Right now, you all sit here. What do you see? You see Bante sitting here, right? You don't see Rupa, right? You don't see color. You see Bante immediately. I also look there, Sister Sam. I'm noting there is just color, one block of color there. So gradually, the yogi starts to discern clearly. Okay, the mind, as the mind gets clearer and clearer, it gets drawn to the reality underlying it. Okay? Because as the mind gets clearer and clearer, this reality, the nature of this reality, this mental, physical nature, they start to become more prominent in the experience. So naturally, when you note, the mind falls on it. The mind always falls on what is prominent. In the beginning is concept. As the mind gets clearer and clearer, then this mental, physical nature becomes prominent. So naturally, when you note, the noting mind will fall on this nature. Okay? Yeah. So from then, so the yogi continue to note continuously. Okay, so tightness, pushing, tightness, knowing, pushing, knowing. So gradually, the samadhi keeps deepening as you hold your attention there and note continuously. The samadhi keeps deepening. Yeah? So that's why I say the method of anupassana is very, very important. This continuous noting. You must hold your attention continuously, noting moment by moment. As you do so, the samadhi goes deeper and deeper. And then the mind becomes clearer and clearer. The samadhi jnana, the clarity of clear knowledge, due to the deepening of concentration, will develop. And as this happens gradually, the yogi begin to notice, begin to realize each nature that is noted as a separate nature, as a separate Dhamma in each noting. Okay, so yeah, in the beginning when you note, right? So there's just this nature, tightness, and falling. So it's like pushing. So although you can note like this, in the beginning when your mind is not clear yet, so you still have the idea that this is just the abdomen. Same thing, going up, going down, going up, going down, tightness, pushing. Right? So but as so you think that all this tightness belong to one thing, just this abdomen. Yeah. So, but as the mind gets clearer and clearer, at some point, when it's clear enough, the yogi begin to realize actually it's not one thing. These are actually each one of this nature is a separate nature, separate Dhamma. It's tightness. The first tightness is one nature. Then another tightness is actually another one. And the next tightness is another one. Okay? Same with the falling, pushing is one physical nature. Then the next pushing, another one. So you begin to realize that they are actually not together, not one and the same thing. They are actually separate. So yogi begin to realize the separateness of each nature, that they are actually separate one from the other. Okay? Even when you note the object and the knowing, in the beginning when the mind is not clear, you think that this is all just one experience. I am experience. I'm experiencing the rising, I'm experiencing the falling. Okay? But when the mind is clear enough, you begin to realize the object is one thing, the knowing is another thing. And they are quite separate. Okay? They are distinctly separate. Okay? So, when the yogi begin to realize that that's just Dhamma in the experience. Yeah? There's just one Dhamma after another, after another, after another in the experience. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of the stages of insight, this of course is the Nama-rupa Paricheda Jnana, the first insight. So where the yogi can tell distinctly each Dhamma from the others. They are not mixed together. So it is like, you see a piece of cloth. At first, to you, it's just a whole piece of cloth. But as you look closer and closer and closer, then you begin to see, actually, this piece of cloth are made up of many pieces of thread. They are woven together so tightly. You do not look carefully, you think, oh, it's one whole piece. But when the attention, you pay careful attention, you see it's one thread after another, after another. Each thread is separate from the others. Okay? And so at this stage, the yogi is able to separate. It's not that you physically pull them apart, what happens is you tell them apart due to the clear knowledge. Okay, this Dhamma, you cannot separate them. Then they arise, they always arise together. Okay? They are inseparable. Okay? So they call it not aviniboga, inseparable. They always come together. But through the power of sharp knowledge, precise knowledge, you can tell them apart. So at this stage of development, the yogi can tell them apart, one by one, as it arises in the experience. Okay? And this is an important foundation insight. Okay? So for the development of Vipassana, clear knowledge into the nature of impermanent suffering and non-self, this ability, this clear knowledge that is able to separate each Dhamma from the other clearly. This is a very important foundation knowledge. Okay? So, because in order to develop clear, sharp, precise insight into nature of the Dhammas, into the nature of impermanent suffering and non-self, first of all, the yogi must be able to discern the continuous arising, passing away of each Dhamma that is noted. Okay? So you must note one Dhamma arising, disappearing, another Dhamma arising, disappearing, then again another one and another one, on and on. The continuous process of arising and disappearing. And then you note like this, then only gradually the mind will be able to discern the nature of impermanent suffering and non-self. Okay? So, but in order to discern clearly each Dhamma arising and passing away, first of all, you must be able to discern the Dhamma separately. Right? So, if they are all mixed together, how to discern each one arising and disappearing? Right? They are all mixed together. Where is the arising? Where is the disappearing? It's all rojak, salad bowl. Right? So, so to be able to discern clearly the arising and disappearing, first your yogi must be able to separate one Dhamma from the other. So you note so that when you note, you can note this Dhamma and then this Dhamma and then this Dhamma. One nature after another nature after another nature separately. Okay? So only when you can discern each nature separately, then only as the mind becomes clearer still, then only you can clearly discern each of this Dhamma arising and disappearing. Right? So if you cannot tell them apart, how to discern their nature arising and disappearing? Right? Yeah, so this first insight, Nama Rupa Parijeda, is a very important foundation. Okay? So, and it is still a foundation knowledge. This is not Vipassana proper yet. At this stage, you are not yet discern nature, impermanent, suffering, non-self. You are simply able to discern each mental and physical nature separately. Okay, in the experience. Okay, yeah, and you can't even actually discern the arising and disappearing yet. Okay, yeah. So once the yogi is established in this Namarupa Paricheda Jnana, so the yogi is able to tell apart due to the clarity of the knowledge, is able to tell apart each nature, each Dhamma separately in each moment of experience. Okay. And then with continuous noting, as the Samadhi Jnana, this clarity or clear knowledge due to the deepening of concentration, as it develops further. So the mind becomes clearer and clearer and clearer still. And then when it's clear enough, then the mind at some point can begin to discern clearly that each of this nature, each physical nature, each mental nature that is discerned in the experience, each of them has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Okay? Each of them has got this three face, very distinct face, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? So if you note tightness has a beginning, middle, and end. You note pushing, it has a beginning, middle, and end. You note knowing also a beginning, middle, and end. So what do we mean by beginning, middle, and end? Hear this again and again from meditation teacher. So beginning means the very first arising of this nature, the very first point of its arising. So before this point, it doesn't exist anywhere. You cannot find this nature anywhere. And then suddenly it appears. So that is the point, the very first arising. So that is the beginning. Okay? So we call that arising. So, and then the end is when it finally disappears. It's like a final, abrupt disappearance. Okay? So first it arises. There's a point where it suddenly appears. It arises. And then it remains present for a while. As it remains present, it doesn't remain static. Even as it is present, it changes. Okay? It heads, we say that it heads towards dissolution, towards breaking up. It doesn't remain. It arises, it remains for a while. Even as it remains, it begins to head towards dissolution, towards breaking up, disappearance. Okay, that is the middle. Okay, we call it the moment of presence. So that's arising, that's remaining present as it heads towards dissolution, and then finally there's a point when it abruptly disappears. When you say disappear, that means it vanishes completely into thin air. It's not that it disappear doesn't mean that There's still something left there. Nothing remains. That nature totally disappears. That is called the end. So beginning, middle, and end means this: the first arising, and then the remaining present as it heads towards dissolution, destruction, and then the final abrupt disappearance of the object. Okay. So you can only discern this when the mind is clear enough, not when the mind is not clear. Okay. So in the beginning, actually, even though the yogis can at nama rupa paricheda, even though the yogi is able to discern one nature after another, one Dhamma after another, separately. Okay? But at that time, the boundary separating each nature from the next one and the one before it is not clearly distinct. It's not clear. Okay, so it's like, so because it's not distinct, it's like a bit hazy, you know. Yeah, so actually at that time, the yogi out of beginning, middle, and what the yogi is actually discerning is the middle part only. Yeah, so because they catch only the middle part, the arising, the first arising, and the final disappearance is not clear. So therefore, the boundary separating one nature from the other is not distinctly clear. Yeah. So therefore, at that time, actually the yogi, he can still fall into the idea of permanence. So he can still think, this is the same thing. So of course for a yogi, those who have studied some Dhamma before practicing meditation, so when nama rupa paricheda, you can see one nature after another, then you know, okay, this is so that is the nature is separate one from the other. So it's because he has studied before. So he has an idea things are not permanent. So some yogis at first when they see one nature, I see impermanent already. But actually you haven't seen it. At nama rupa paricheda, you are just seeing the middle of the middle part, not the beginning, not the end yet. You haven't seen anicca yet. To see anicca, you have to discern the end of the phenomena, the end of the nature. Okay? Yeah. So, but because you have some knowledge, then you think, okay, I understand this. This is impermanent. So, but for yogi who have never studied Buddha's teaching before, they come in, they say like a piece of white paper, completely blank. So they can still fall into the idea of things being permanent. So because it's just catching the middle part, so it's still the boundary is not distinctly clear yet. So therefore, the yogi can still think actually it's the same thing. It's the same abdomen, but the intensity is increasing and decreasing as it discern the tightness. Then he thinks that it's the abdomen, but then it's becoming tighter, and then loosening, and tighter, loosening. So he still thinks it's the same thing. So yeah. So but as he develops, as his mind gets clearer and clearer due to the deepening of the samadhi. So at some point, as the yogi knows this nature one after another, Okay? So at some point you begin to realize, begin to discern as it notes each nature. You begin to discern the first arising. As the mind becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, the first arising of each phenomena starts to become clear, distinct to the yogi. Okay, so this is due to the development of the clarity of mind. Okay, it has always been like this, but when your mind is not clear enough yet, you cannot discern it. Okay, it's just like when you look at things under a microscope. Okay, so you adjust the focus, right? So as you adjust, it gets clearer and clearer. Okay, but in the beginning, it's not as really that clear yet. It starts to come into focus, but it's not really clear yet. But then you have to continue to adjust the focus so that it becomes sharper and sharper. As it becomes sharper and sharper, then you start to see the image more and more distinctly. Same with our meditation. Okay, so that's why this samadhi, you're training the mind to focus, so that the object becomes more and more distinctly clear. Okay. So when it becomes clear enough, every time the yogi note one nature, it starts to pick up the very first arising of that nature. Okay, you can see the point where it actually arises. Okay? So before that, it's all blur. Yes, he knows there's one nature, then another nature, and another nature. But what happened in between these two is not clear, because the beginning and the end is not clear. You just catch the middle only. But at some point, the first arising starts to appear clearly. You can discern it very distinctly. Okay? But not yet the disappearance. So this is more during the second insight, especially when the yogi sees the cause and effect. So the yogi keeps seeing when there is a cause, the effect arise. Okay, like when you note stretching, so you see the intention. The moment the intention and the movement occur. Another intention and the movement occur. So when the yogi notes this, you can see clearly the arising of the intention and then immediately the arising of the movement. First arising of the movement. Okay, so there's intention, again the movement occur. Another intention and again it occur. So you can see arising. An intention arise, the movement arise, intention arise, movement arise, again and again. So, but you cannot yet catch the disappearance. So actually, the disappearance is more subtle. Arising is more gross. So it's easier to discern than the disappearance. Disappearance is more subtle. You need to have a deeper samadhi for the mind to be clear enough to catch the disappearance. Okay? So at this stage of development, the yogi keeps seeing only the arising of each Dhamma. In the beginning, you just see one Dhamma after another, without knowing the arising or the disappearing. Okay? But when it's clear enough, then you can see, arising. But only the arising. Before we can catch the disappearance of the nature, the Dhamma, another Dhamma arises. And so he sees the arising of this next Dhamma. And before you can see it disappearing, another one arises, and then another, and another, and another. So the disappearance is not clear yet. Okay. So how do you discern the disappearance? Same method. There's only one method. Anupassana. So you note again and again. That's why you have to make effort to sustain the noting continuously. So as you keep noting continuously, again the samadhi deepen. When it's deep enough, then the mind becomes clear enough. Then at some point, you note, you realize, as you're noting, you see the arising, and then the moment of presence, and then you realize, oh, it disappears. It disappears. It's like a very abrupt disappearing. So it just like vanish completely. So it arises, stay for a while, and then pop, disappear. So now the mind becomes clear enough to discern the disappearance. So gradually, you come to this stage, then you start to, everything you know, it arises, it remains just for a while, and then disappear. Another one arises, it remains for a while, and disappear. And then another one, and another one, arising, disappearing, arising, disappearing. Okay. So at this stage, the yogi is able to discern all the three phases of each nature, the beginning, middle, and end, clearly. Okay. So this began with samaṇera, okay, the third insight. Okay. But the third insight is very slow. The changes is very slow. It arises, arising is very fast, just one moment. And then it stays for a while, and then pop, disappear. It's still very slow. Yeah. So, but if you, so again, anupassana, so you note continuously, note again and again. As the mind gets clearer and clearer, the knowledge becomes sharper and sharper. The noting becomes more and more precise. Then it comes closer and closer to the present moment. So as it comes closer and closer, the present moment gets clearer and clearer. Then the yogi find that the rate of arising and disappearing accelerate. It comes to the next insight, udayabhayanyana. The mind is precisely in the moment. So in that moment, this nature arises. In that very moment, it disappears. And it becomes so fast, the arising and disappearing so fast. One after another, rapidly. It's like you put your finger on the comb, and then you stroke the comb. So you go very fast. That's udayabhayanyana. So it becomes so fast that the middle part, the moment of present, is no longer discernible because it's so fast. The yogi can only catch the moment of arising, and then immediately after that, it disappears. Yeah. So only when the yogi is able to note like this, see each Dhamma arising and disappearing, then only the yogi can realize clearly that each one of these Dhamma that arise, they are truly momentary. So at the stage of nama rupa parichedanya, you may not, even though you can see each of these natures separately, but you do not yet realize it's clearly its momentary nature, because the boundary separating them is not clear. You may still think that they are actually part of the same thing. So, but now the yogi, when they can discern clearly the first moment of arising and then the final moment of disappearance clearly. So there is a cut-off point. So that you can discern clearly that each nature is separate, is truly momentary. So that they last only for a moment. Okay? So yeah. So at that time, really, then you start to lose the idea of the abdomen. Okay, but not completely lost yet. It's because they can still come back. Sometimes I mix because the concept don't really disappear until Banganyana. So as long as you still see arising, the concept is somehow still there. Okay, but you can already realize that each of this Dhamma, each mental and physical nature, they are truly momentary. You can see the first arising. Before that point of arising, it is nowhere to be found. And then suddenly it appears. And then it disappears. Upon disappearing, you cannot find it anywhere. So it's truly just momentary. Yes. So from here you can see why during the interview, why the teacher keep drilling the yogi. Describe your experience. So you want you to describe in detail. Explain what happened moment to moment, not generally. Generally, sometimes can follow, sometimes cannot follow, sometimes goes on. This is generally, we are not interested in that. Describe your experience moment to moment. So you have to describe, I'm not rising, I'm not falling. And then when you're not rising, what do you note? Beginning, middle, end. What do you note? What do you experience? So you're trying to find out how clear is your experience. Are you able to now separate the Dhamma, or everything still mixed up? And if you can separate the Dhamma, clear cut, descend the arising and disappearing. So that's why we drill the yogi. So you have to report clearly. Don't just simply chin-chai. Report a little bit here, a little bit there, jump here, jump there. This shows that you're not observing carefully. So only if you observe carefully, moment to moment to moment, then only you can slowly dissect the experience and see it clearly. Actually, this is what we are doing. Essentially, we are like dissecting the experience moment to moment to moment. So it's just like when you want to cut a cucumber. So you chin-chai cut a cucumber there, like that, chin-chai cut. So you end up with all kinds of shape. But you see some of this, when I was young, small boy, I'm always fascinated by some of these hawkers, because near my house there are a lot of hawkers. So sometimes I go and see how they prepare the food. I see the chicken rice seller when he cut the cucumber. Oh, it goes, his knife very precise, is very focused. It goes, so it comes out small slices, one after another, after another, after another. So Vipassana noting is like this. So you must dissect the experience. So you must be very focused. So you go rising, you go chin-chai rising, falling. You cannot sink in. So you must go focus. Very carefully follow from beginning to end, rising. Then gradually the experience becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Then it becomes more and more distinct. The nature, the mental, physical nature become more and more distinct. And then it can become separate. You can tell them one from the other. Then gradually you start to see each one of them arising and then each one of them disappearing. Only when there is this continuous, precise, focused attention. That's why the Satipatthana instruction is given as such. You must note the body in the body, very precise. And then Anupassana, so continuous noting moment after moment after moment. And then with ardent energetic effort, driving this continuous noting, this precise continuous noting. And then with mindfulness, continuously establishing in each nature that is noted. And then the clear comprehension to pick up clearly the nature. So Satipatthana instruction is designed for you to dissect clearly this experience, to see its nature clearly. So this nature, so the yogi, when you develop up to here, I can discern the arising, disappearance of the object. Okay? So the three phases of each nature, each Dhamma, the beginning, middle, and end, this is what we call Sankhata Lakkhana. Characteristic of things that are conditioned. Sankhata means condition, or things that are conditioned. Lakkhana means characteristic. So the characteristic of things that are conditioned. Okay? So all things that are conditioned, that means all nama rupa has this nature. They arise. So because of suitable condition, they arise. So they have a moment of arising. When the condition is there, they arise. Before that, you cannot find them anywhere. When the conditions are not there, you cannot find them anywhere. When they come together, then suddenly they appear. It's like they pop up from the condition. So, and then they remain for a while, and then finally they disappear. Okay? So as long as the condition remain, they remain. Okay? And then when the condition disintegrate, they also disintegrate, disappear. Okay? So this is called Sankhata Lakkhana, nature of things that are conditioned. Okay? So so all things that are conditioned has this nature, arising and disappearing. Okay? It's because of this arising and disappearing that they are impermanent, suffering, non-self. So that which is unconditioned, which is what? What is unconditioned? Nibbana is unconditioned. So Nibbana, unconditioned. There's no cause and condition for the arising of Nibbana. So therefore, Nibbana does not arise. So it does not arise, it also does not disappear. Right? So the Nibbana simply is. It is there. It's stable, unchanging. Nibbana is always there. Just that the mind is not clear enough to experience it. So it's duva, it's stable, unchanging. Yeah. Actually, you can say that it is permanent. Yeah. It's permanent. It is nicha, not anicca. It is sukha, not dukkha. So because it's stable, it doesn't arise and disappear. That which arises and disappears is unstable. It's oppressive. But Nibbana does not arise, does not disappear. It's just a state of absolute peace. It's stable. It's sukha, santi sukha. Santi sukha rama. Santi sukha means happiness of peace, absolute peace. There's a happiness of Nibbana. Yeah. But Nibbana is anatta. So even though it's unconditioned, it's anatta. So it's impersonal. Nibbana is not some kind of God or something. It's just a natural phenomenon. So, yeah. So Sankata Lakkhana arises and disappears. So, so actually this is mentioned in this Sankata Lakkhana Sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Tika Nipata Pali, the book of the trees. In Sankata Lakkhana Sutta, the Buddha talk about the Sankata Lakkhana. And so it says, Tini mani bhikkhave sankatassa sankata lakkhanani. So bhikkhus, there are these three conditioned nature of things that are conditioned. So katamani tini, what are the three? So upado panyayati, is arising, is evident. So all things that are conditioned, the arising of it is evident. So, but to be evident, of course, you must have clear knowledge. You don't have clear knowledge, it's not evident. So here the Buddha says, upado panyayati. This arising is clear. So if you are paying attention, focus attention with clear knowledge, then it is clear. It is evident. And vayo panyayati, its disappearance, its falling away, is also evident. So arising is evident, disappearing is evident. Then titassa anyatatam panyayati. So this means it's change while it remains. So it arises and then it remains, right? But as it remained, it doesn't remain static. It changes. It goes towards dissolution, right? So this is called change. Anyatatam actually means it becomes something else, become otherwise. So that means change. So it's change while it remains. Tittasa anyatatam, change while it remains, is evident. So these are the three Sankata Lakkhana. The arising is evident, disappearing is evident. It's change while it remains is evident. So this tree is called Sankata Lakkhana. Nature of all things that are conditioned. And so first the yogi descends Sabhava Lakkhana. And then after that, it's clear enough, it descends Sankata Lakkhana, the arising, the disappearing. So, but in your practice, so you should not, even though we describe to you generally what this nature are like, just to give you a clear idea or a clear path of development. Because I find that the yogi do not know where the practice is supposed to be heading, then they have their own idea where the practice supposed to head. Then they go in their own direction. So that's why in the Dhamma talk we must give them a direction. That's why we explain clearly to you where the practice is supposed to develop towards. But in your practice, don't try to search for this nature. So don't try to search. Just continue to note as usual. So as you note as usual, putting in effort every moment to note precisely and then to note continuously again and again. So when the samadhi develops sufficiently, then the mind will be clear enough. You will be able to discern this nature by itself. You will be able to naturally discern this nature clearly. So don't search. So don't search for arising, don't search for disappearing. But when the mind is clear enough, naturally, at some point you begin to notice that each of this nature that you know, it arises. And when it's clear enough still, you notice that as soon as it arises, it disappears. So you notice that clearly. Before that, there was a point before that this nature was non-existence. Then suddenly it appeared. And the yogi, especially at the second insight, you can even discern the condition out of which it appears. The condition is there, it arises. Okay? So then after a short while, it vanished completely. It disappeared. So when the mind is clear enough, when you're paying focused attention, you'll be able to discern this. Okay, so don't try to go search for it. So when you search for it, of course, sometimes you can discern. Okay, so but only when you pay close attention. That's why you have to pay close attention, moment to moment to moment. The idea is not to catch a little bit here, a little bit there, but anupassana, to note continuously it is arising and disappearing. So in the beginning, when you pay close attention, you might be able to catch a little bit here, a little bit there. Okay, but that is not enough. The idea is you have to note it continuously, and so that again and again you see. If you pay close attention, you can discern arising and disappearing. If your mind is clear enough, sharp enough. So like now you see, you snap the finger. So you pay close attention. Now I snap. You try to catch the beginning. You see, catch. You can see the first arising. There's a point when it arises. Okay. Now you try to catch the disappearance. You see. Where is it now? Can you see the point where it disappears? Your mind is clear enough. You will. If you have not been meditating, you may not be able to catch. You may still start to think, hey, where is the disappearance? But the yogi who have been meditating for some time here, you might be able, when I snap the finger, and you note that, you may be able to see the point where it disappears. So the idea is that you're paying such focused attention moment after moment after moment after moment, so that every moment you can catch. Every nature that you note, arising, disappearing, arising, disappearing. Not just a little bit here, a little bit there, or when I ask you to focus your attention, then only you catch. Then the rest of the time, never mind. Just not very lightly. You not lightly, you cannot catch. So that's not as usual. So when the mind is clear enough, then you can begin to discern. Okay? So don't try to search. You try to search, then you start thinking, is this the arising? Is that the arising? Is this the disappearance? So you still have to think, then it's not. Because when you think, you're out of the moment already, you see. Because all this nature, they are actually occurring very, very fast. So, like Udayabaya, it's so fast. Arising and disappearing, arising, disappearing. There's no time to think. Right? The moment you think, you're no longer in the moment. There's no time to think. There's only time for you to experience it, to bring the mind there to the experience and experience it. The nature is there. The arising and disappearing is always there. You don't have to think, try to search, think, is this the one, is that the one? It's always there. Right? You just need to be clear enough to develop the mind until it's so clear enough. When you bring it there, right there, in that moment, you can experience very clearly it arises, very clearly it disappears. No need to think. There's no time to think. There's time enough to experience it arising and disappearing in the moment. Then it's gone. Then you have to note the next one. The next one also, you just bring the mind there. Again, it arises and disappears. There's no time to think. You think, that means you are not seeing clearly anymore because you're out of the moment already. Okay? So it's just like when you want to see lightning, nature of lightning. You only have time when the lightning flashes off. It's very fast. You have time to think, hey, how is it? By the time you think, how is it, already disappeared. So you just have to pay focus, attention, look carefully. The moment it flashes off, immediately you experience it. You see clearly the color of the lightning, how long is it, how many branches, how bright is it, the pattern, and so on. In that one moment, you can discern, right? So you think of it, then you cannot see anything because your attention is in the thinking, not in the lightning. The same with Vipassana. Your attention has to be there with the experience of the mental physical nature, not in the mind thinking. Okay, so once the Sankhata Lakkhana appear clearly, then again Anupassana. The yogi note again and again, arising, disappearing, arising, disappearing. Then it's a matter of time before yogi begin to discern the next one, samaṇera lakkhana, nature, impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Okay, okay. We stop here tonight. Imaya Dhamma Dhamma Patipatiya Buddham Pujemi. Imaya Dhamma Dhamma Patipatiya Dhammam Pujemi. Imaya Dhamma Dhamma Patipatiya Sangham Pujemi. Imaya Dhamma Dhamma Patipatiya Mata Pitunam Pujemi. Imaya Dhamma Dhamma Patipatiya Acariyanam Pujemi. Adha Imaya Patipadaya Jaramranamha Rimochesami. Idam me punyam asavakaya vaham hotu. Idam me punyam nibbanasa pacayo hotu. Idam me silam magabhalanyanasa pacayo hotu. Imam no punya bhagam sabbasadanam dema. Imam no punya bhagam sabbasadanam dema. Imam no punya bhagam sabbasadanam dema. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So may all of you be well, happy, and peaceful always. May you be healthy, be safe, be strong. And may your practice of the Dhamma be continuous. Be free from obstacle, be free from hindrances, be smooth, without any trouble. And may you all be able to experience the unconditioned peace of Nibbana through your practice of the Dhamma.